Good morning, good afternoon, or good night. Welcome back, or if you haven't met me, it's lovely to meet you. I'm Ash, and my last two videos have been Among Us related, so if you want all of my thoughts in a more understandable order, go check those out, and then come back for this one. Or fuck it, we ball. It is not my life. You can watch this one, and then go backwards if you like. As a refresher, if you have watched those videos but don't want to go and rewatch them, we've gone over white, blue, lime, and orange. So you might think we do cyan and yellow now to keep in with the death order, but how could I separate yellow and brown, or cyan and black for that matter? So today we'll go over my favorite union workers. Spoilers ahead, proceed with caution, traveler. Yellow is up first, and I love them. On a more critical first watch, the beef between Yellow and Orange, as well as most of Yellow's funny moments, definitely read as virtue signaling and a bit out of touch with the anti-capitalist messaging they are pushing. All of Yellow's opinions feel very surface level, and a little like the corporation who made the show being like, yes, we do understand the working class. However, the whole show is very anti-establishment and anti-capitalism with how the Mirror Corporation is shown, so I think having one of the characters explicitly state the underlying messaging of the show is honestly pretty necessary in the modern age of shows and even media, considering the very real media literacy crisis we are currently in, and even the literary crisis in general. And with 11 characters and Yellow not being a, stay to the end character like red, green, or purple, I think it is a good use of one of their 11 characters to utilize them as the explicit virtue signaling and explicit, this is the point of the show kind of character. So the whole show really does show how little this big overlord corporation cares about its employees. A lot of it is shown through jokes like Orange forging White's signature on some kind of liability waiver, and other human resources not actually working for your best interest jokes. Side note, they never actually say human resources, do they? Just HR? They're not human. They be beans. Or crewmates? What does the H stand for? Regardless, Mirror HQ doesn't even actually tell its employees what they're transporting, especially because it would probably not be very marketable of a position if the crewmates knew they were not only transporting live fucking eggs that their species is using for fuel, but also that they can hatch and fucking kill you. I hope we get more content so we can really see why they're transporting these eggs. I've noticed a lot of people think the pink corporate Among Us character in the intro might be an imposter, in which case maybe using the eggs as fuel might be a lie, or they are like green and like to kill and don't like the competition. But I'm more inclined to believe if the series does continue with more content, we'll see the imposters become more morally grey kind of characters, and they're actually in some kind of like hush-hush war with Big Mirror Corporation. So I don't think that this specific character is intended to be an imposter, but if we do see them and they are, that would definitely be very interesting, considering that that doesn't seem like a very good way to keep your species alive, but maybe they just be like that. As far as I'm aware, Among Us was made by a pretty independent studio, and obviously got fairly popular now. So it doesn't overly surprise me that they would have a kind of anti-corporation view within the show. It is just kind of surprising seeing as it is on Paramount Plus, which is a platform I have major beef with, because they are not a we the corporation is your friend kind of platform. They're pretty actively the Trump program now. They've been like bought out by his people. And so I don't know how much I trust them with the show, because they didn't produce like the show, they didn't animate it. They just are the platform it is streaming on. And the way that they treated Among Us's release by not announcing it in any useful capacity is kind of telling that they probably don't actually want this show to succeed. And maybe that has something to do with the political messaging behind this of, questioning the people in charge and not just doing things by the book. I'll touch more on that explicit sentiment in Brown's portion of this video, but I fear I've actually talked very little about Yellow in Yellow's segment, so I would like to talk about them. Yellow really reads as the kind of Among Us character that gets unfairly voted out just because they're slightly aggressive and maybe a little bit defensive. Think of any of your favorite Among Us lobbies where the streamer who is never the imposter always gets voted out for no reason other than the vibe check.
So what are vibes exactly?
Vibes are an emotional frequency created and received like a two-way radio between two mate souls.
Now that's deep.
Obviously in the show this is a little different as Green has actively framed Yellow, but the energy and vibes are still very much there. My favorite fan art of Yellow so far has them being super small, so the short and angry stereotype, and Brown being a huge teddy bear in comparison to not only Yellow but the whole crew. And now, take a shot every time I compliment the voice acting, but I do really want everyone to get their flowers. Deborah Wilson is fantastic as Yellow. She seems to have done a lot more voice acting than most of the cast other than Brown, I think. So I'm not surprised she did a fantastic job in this role, but I am just, as I keep saying, really happy that this show is actually good and has a lot of care and thought put into it. It's not just a paycheck for these actors, like some things are now. Yellow is super important for not only developing the plot, but also Black and Cyan's relationship, with how they are the only one to point out to Black that they are being an asshole and not very punk rock. I will touch on it more when I actually do my thoughts on Black, but they very much read as the kind of character that believes they are so punk and quirky and cool, but don't actually fulfill a lot of those values because they don't like the weirder people around them. And Yellow seems to be able to really see that in Black, and not only in Black, but Yellow seems to be able to read past people's masks and be able to read them really well. So it makes Cyan's death hit super hard when Yellow does find their body, and then when Yellow dies, it's actually really uncomfortable. Maybe that's not the right word, but seeing them just freeze and everyone watching getting more and more horrified the longer they wait for the confirmation they're safe and didn't just kill an innocent friend, it's quite upsetting. Speaking of all of those scenes surrounding that, why in God's green earth did the Among Us show have me in tears? The dramatic irony of Brown having had the opportunity to save Yellow, but they skipped. Their goodbye, the realization they were implicit in the murder, the genuinely incredible comment on how everyone who voted, engaged in the fucked up system, killed Yellow, including themselves. Even if you voted for Red, even if you skipped, but it's okay, because they did the murder by the book. Poetry! There's something clearly more to their friendship than just being friends. The way Yellow caresses Brown's face during that godforsaken goodbye, the fucking hearts on all the dots they wrote for Brown, the fucking hearts Brown makes when they finally try the fucking salt! Don't even get me started on how calm Brown is to die. God, it's brilliant. Genuinely had me in tears. The emotional complexity of all these characters is insane for the limited amount of screen time they have. With what little we know, it's so easy to guess the kind of relationship they had without it even being said. Do I think they're in love? Yes. But, I don't know. As a queer person who is almost definitely on the aromantic spectrum but hates actually thinking about that, their love really reads like a queer platonic relationship to me. Something clearly more than just friends or even best friends, but I don't know that that love is what we expect from an explicitly romantic couple. Maybe I'm way off base with that one, but that's just how I see it. No shade or hate to people who think or want them to be romantic partners. I will eat that shit up. I love gay people. Otherwise, I really enjoyed Brown. I did not research the voice actors until I was like doing the specific searches to actually talk about the characters in their 5-7 minute segments in these videos. But I was so shocked to learn that Phil Lamar was their voice actor. The repertoire is huge. Somehow did not recognize him at all. I haven't seen everything he's been in, but I've seen much more of him than any of the cast. But I specifically found out he was in Wow Wow Wubsy, and Christ almighty did that bring back some crazy long back childhood memories. So, not shocked he played Brown so well, but still, I'm gonna give them all their flowers. Yellow and Brown being the only Union members of this entire ship is a very interesting thing because it presents us with a society in the Among Us world that is probably very anti-union. Like, yes, a lot of our countries are in the real world, but specifically I'm from Australia and unions are very well respected as far as I am aware. The teachers union gets a lot of like actual authority like in the government, and a lot of others do as well. So maybe this is more of an American thing, but I was like very saddened to see that like they were kind of played as like a little bit of a joke, and I understand that it does help with the narrative of anti-capitalism and anti-establishmentarianism stuff, but I kind of wish they were taken a little bit more seriously than just being used as jokes. Maybe they didn't have to be, maybe I'm thinking too much into it, maybe it's not that deep, but that is my opinion. I talked a lot less about the characters in this video because these two characters are so important to reading the anti-everything I keep fucking saying reading of this show. But I do genuinely enjoy their characters as well. They were very funny to watch, they were very heartwarming to watch, and they were very heartbreaking to watch. And also, food and pizza being the thing that finally beats the, like, guy. Well, not pizza explicitly, but the usage of salt and the fact that it was on that pizza and that's how Purple figured it out and stuff. I really enjoyed because this show did a very good job of tying the eventual win of Purple and Red to all of the people that they lost and all of the characters that were lost in the show. And so I will talk about that in more detail when I go over Green. Green actually might be like their own video just because of how much I want to talk about them and their relation to the plot, but maybe not. We'll see when we get there. Regardless, thanks for joining me on this very long rant about capitalism, I guess. And I will hopefully see you next time, where I will be focusing in on Black and Cyan. Bye!